About 1/3 of Americans are taking a prescription, and this is kind of the scary part. The average person who is on a prescription has 4 prescriptions, and we're paying dearly for it, but Mark Cuban has an answer. Well, I do a lot of stuff in cybersecurity, and I've got a few different courses coming up. And of course, we do a little bit of weekly training for anybody who's on my email list, on the free list, absolutely free, as well as you get my insider show notes. And if you got my show notes, you probably noticed this little tidbit here on Tuesday when I sent it out. And that is Mark Cuban. Now, for those who don't know Mark Cuban, he started way back in the internet boom days. He lucked out. He had a company called broadcast.com. And he was able to turn that into, I think it was well over $1 billion. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was a very, very big chunk of money. And then he's gone on to become an investor. You might know him as the owner of a basketball team. You might have seen him on a TV show called Shark Tank. He's been out there, and he's a bright guy. He's been helping a lot of people and causing a lot of problems too, right? But he has a new business that he has started with his billions of dollars. Well, he has at least $1 billion. And it's called Cost Plus Drugs. Now, this is where it comes into effect every American, because I mentioned, how many Americans are on various prescriptions. Well, many of the prescriptions that we could be taking are actually generics. So, for instance, if you go to the Walmart pharmacy or Walgreens or wherever it might be, you'll find that they have options for you. If the doctor says, yeah, generic's okay, they'll say, hey, listen, I'll give you the generic, and you can save a whole lot of money. I don't know if you've looked at GoodRx at all, but GoodRx, I have saved a ton of money with that. And what they do is help you find free coupons, compare the prices at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, at the major pharmacies, and will tell you where you can go to get your best deal. Plus, they also have some really cool discounts. So it acts kind of like a discount card. So I'm on their site right now, goodrx.com. And I'm looking up their number one drug, which is Lipitor. Apparently, it's used for coronary disease and high cholesterol. So they're saying, well, wait a minute now here. You can get a few different options. I'm looking now, for instance, CVS Pharmacy. Normal retail, by the way, is $126 at CVS. You can get it using a goodrx.com card, 76% off for $30 instead of $126. Walmart, $15. Walmart Neighborhood Market, $15. Now, at Walmart, that's what they consider to be their retail price, although, as I mentioned, some of these other ones have much, much higher retail prices. So you can see that going for instance, for Lipitor, you might be paying a premium for a brand name. Now, there's a good reason for that. There's a reason why prescription drugs can be expensive, and they're called patent drugs. And the reason they're called patent drugs is they've put a lot of money in, they've put a lot of research time, they've put up with a whole lot of regulation and going back and forth with various government agencies, and they finally were able to come forward with a drug that works. So put all of that together, and you've got a very expensive research and development product, right? Or project, frankly. So I don't really hold it against them for having some of these drugs being rather expensive. You might remember that epinephrine a few years ago, this guy got a hold of the company that made epinephrine, and the whole problem with them. I'm looking it up right now, like EpiPens. They used to be expensive, and then they became crazy expensive. So let me see here. EpiPens. Who needs it? There's a whole lot of information. and it's not telling me how much they are. But he raised the price, like, what was it, 2,000% or something insane. Again, a prescription drug, and one that some people really need in order to save their lives. You know, I'm a beekeeper, right? And I used to have a really bad reaction to bee stings, wasp stings. Now I just have a reaction, right? We thought at the time I was allergic, but no, it was just a bad reaction, which I still have, right? I get stung multiple times a year, but it still swells up. Now, when our friend Mark Cuban started looking at this, he said that this is kind of crazy. So what he's done now is Mark Cuban has built, I think it's all up and running, just outside of Dallas. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. Just outside of Dallas, a huge building. It's a 22,000 square foot plant. Now, most of the pharmaceuticals are actually easy to make and cheap to make. And that's where it kind of gets confusing, because you've got all of the R&D and the government regulations, everything else. That's expensive. But actually making them is pretty cheap. But he's built this $11 million plant near downtown Dallas. And he says right now, looking at what the expenses are, that Medicare could have saved as much as, are you ready for this? $3.6 billion per year. Now, that's where we're talking about everybody. Because if you pay taxes, you are paying for some of this Medicare money. $3.6 billion per year in savings by buying it from Cost Plus Drugs. So there's something else I want you to check out. So the first one was GoodRx.com. The second one is Cost Plus Drugs. They have over 100 generic prescription medications right now. And what they're doing is they're taking the actual cost of production, and I'm sure that includes, right, the loan on the building, etc. But the cost of production plus a 15% margin, because you need to keep the lights on. You need to be able to expand. Profit is not a bad word. That's how people save for retirement, by investing in companies, buying stocks, and that profit then becomes their money for retirement. I think that's an important thing. So 15% margin and an $8 pharmacy dispensing and shipping fee. That is absolutely cheap. So this is Hussein Lalani, who did the research on this, and he published it in the Annals of Internal Medicine, looking at that. Just absolutely amazing. And that's something you can do too. 1/3 of Americans, again, we are on prescription drugs, and the average person is on 4. Wow. So researchers compared the price charged by Cost Plus Drugs for 89 generic medications to the cost for the same drugs paid by Medicare in 2020. They found the government program could have saved 37% on 77 generic drugs by buying from Cuban's company. Cost Plus Drugs launched in January, direct-to-consumer, bypasses wholesalers, bypasses pharmacies, bypasses insurance. All of those are driving up the cost of medicine. So direct-to-consumer, how easy could that be? And I'm on their website right now looking at a couple of things here. Let me see. Let me go back there. Cost Plus Drugs. And I believe you can just go to costplusdrugs.com. Yes, you can. I am there as we are talking. So he's got, here's one. Imtabinib, which is the generic for Gleevec. I'm not familiar with that myself. Retail price, $2,502. Cost Plus, are you ready? $14. Can you believe that? That is crazy. Yeah, wow. And it'll look different, obviously, because it's a generic. So you save $2,488 for a 30-count supply. That is just amazing. So when I was talking about the savings here, where Okay, they could have saved 37% on 77 generic drugs, but when you start getting into these really expensive drugs, that's where the 3.6 billion really starts to add up in savings. This is something. So what you can do once you're on costplusdrugs.com, you can contact your doctor for a prescription. They've got a get started button. They have the strength that you want, in this case 100 milligrams or 400, the quantity you want. And then all that has to happen is your doctor has to approve it. You pay $14 instead of $2,500, and it gets shipped straight to you. Wow. Now, is that cheaper than Medicare Part B, all right, or your regular insurance? Wow, sure is. Just absolutely amazing. So you can find all of this stuff. This is Mark Cuban doing this, and I gotta say I am impressed. He is going to help a whole lot of people. Yeah, I'm just looking at this. Wow. Here's another one. Retail price, $9,600. And at Cost Plus Drugs, you can get it for $39. So there you go. Two options. Mark Cuban's new venture, which is online now at costplusdrugs.com and goodrx.com. Wow. It's just amazing, right? This world. What's it coming to? Great little drug company. So we're going to talk, if you are a user of Outlook, this is important to you because major attack underway. Major scam underway. If you are an Outlook customer, you are in the crosshairs of a very successful credential stealing campaign. So I'm going to tell you about that, what it means, what you can do, and how you can stay safe. This is a very big problem for people who are using Microsoft 365. That is really common. It used to be called Office 365, and you pay a flat monthly fee, $20, $25. It kind of depends on what level you get. They have some real cheap ones as well. And it lets you use all of what Microsoft used to call Microsoft Office applications. And one of those applications is Outlook. And I've never particularly liked Outlook. They have gotten better in recent years, and I actually do use it right now as well as MacMail. I use both of them. But there is a hack going on against Microsoft 365 and Outlook customers in the U.S. Here's what's happening. They are sending you an email, and the email really does look like it's a voicemail that somebody left you. This is called a voicemail phishing attack, and it follows what's kind of a classic phishing flow, if you will, the ways they've been doing phishing here over the years. And what phishing is basically getting you to bite at something that you shouldn't bite on. You will respond to an email, you'll click on a link, you might call a phone number, you might click on a text message. That's another one that's going around right now. How do you tell a fake text message from a real text message? And I'm afraid to say nowadays you tell by just not clicking on the links that are in text messages. It's so disappointing. I was talking on the radio this week because it bothers me so much about this very thing. I've been on the internet for decades now, right? I started back in 81, I think it was, maybe 82, and we had email, and it was the best thing ever. If you had somebody's email address, you could send them a note, and you'd be pretty darn sure they'd get it. In fact, they probably would get it within just a few minutes and respond to you. And there wasn't any spam. Back then, the idea was, hey, listen, the internet is for research, government research, university research, and that's the way it should stay. And indeed, we were kind of keeping it that way for quite a while. And then some people who were marketers got on the internet, and they would start to advertise, hey, we have a special session for you at UC Berkeley this week, only $500. And of course, that went beyond what the internet was for. In fact, at the time, you could not use it legally for any sort of financial purposes. So what we would do back then is we would send the script to the Monty Python routine of spam. Remember that spam, spam and egg, spam and ham, spam and spam? Yeah, we would send them the whole thing. And they sometimes, if somebody sent out a little thing that was trying to sell something that they should not be selling online because it was illegal to use the internet for business, in case you didn't know, until about 1991, and that's when I started putting businesses online and really started focusing in on cybersecurity, because almost immediately the bad guys started getting on there. So this is really what happened. This was the script, right? Well, what have you got, waitress? Well, there's egg and bacon, egg, sausage and bacon, egg and spam, egg, bacon and spam, egg, bacon, spam, sausage and spam, spam, bacon, sausage and spam, spam, egg, spam, spam, bacon, spam. Do you remember that? So we would send this to people who kind of broke the rules, written or unwritten, on the internet. And sometimes somebody would get just 100 of these things, maybe even more. And what would happen back then, of course, is it would fill up your mailbox and it would slow down your internet connection, because a lot of us were just connected to the internet via dial-up modems. So it really kind of hurt you to get all kinds of spam emails coming in. That's where the term comes from. I remember it well, so I don't care what they say on some of these websites where they're trying to do a little research on it and figure it out. Well, now things have gotten a lot worse, because it isn't just marketers that are trying to sell us something, and I don't have a problem with marketers. I guess in a way I am one myself, right? I have a business and I provide cybersecurity services for high net worth individuals and for businesses. And if you are a regular person, you have a question, please ask. Just send an email to me, me@craigpeterson.com, no matter who you are, and I will try and answer the question for you. And I have a lot of stuff that I've written over the years that I'd be more than glad to forward to you. There are some training courses that I put together that I will be more than glad to share with you. And you probably know I did all of the training for the FBI's InfraGard program for a couple of years. I ran that online, all of their webinars. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm more than glad to help. That's why I'm here, right? But now we got bad guys. And the bad guys are trying to get you to do something against your best interest. So in this case, what happens is you get a missed voicemail notification via email. And a lot of times it'll look pretty legitimate. It might even be coming from someone inside your company whose account they have hacked. Now, on that email, there is an HTML attachment. Now, HTML attachments can get past a lot of email gateway filters because they aren't in and of themselves malicious. So they're not raising big red flags for users in a voicemail notification setting, because that's how Microsoft Office sends you legitimate notifications anyways. Now, these from fields are set up specifically using the organization's name, as I said, sometimes even a valid email address. Now, if you go ahead and click on that attachment, it will run a program on your computer using a language called JavaScript, and that's embedded in every browser out there nowadays. And that JavaScript code is going to redirect you to an attacker-controlled website. Now, this website's set up to get you to give up your credentials. So what they'll do now is, as you go to the website, and the website might look like it's Microsoft Office, and it might look like it's your business website, and it'll ask you to log in. It might ask you for other information as well. It is trying to get your username and password that it can then use to go after other people. You see what's happening here? So each of the URLs these guys are creating, these websites that they're sending you to, are created to match the targeted company. It's incredible how good they're getting. And they even have one of those Google reCAPTCHA pop-ups. Now, this is an increasingly popular technique to evade these automated URL analysis tools. So, for instance, with my clients, an email comes in, it goes through Cisco's email filter. We have an advanced email filter from Cisco that we run our clients' emails through. And what happens is they look at the URLs, they visit the website that the URL points to, they try and verify if it's legit or not. And you've had CAPTCHAs, it's click every box that has a bicycle in it sort of a thing. It's kind of a Turing test puzzle. So once this is solved, we'll tell you what happens next, because we're out of time right now. Make sure you visit me online, craigpeterson.com. I'll keep you up to date. You can get my free newsletter and trainings, craigpeterson.com. And I want to talk, too, about businesses and the big business of email compromise. Yeah, I think most of us know what a big business is. Well, how about a business, an industry that has racked in $43 billion, according to the FBI? That's what we're talking about right now and what you can do about it. We were talking about what's been happening with Microsoft Outlook users right now. A major campaign's underway that has been extremely successful because these bad guys are using some rather advanced technologies. Absolutely crazy. So they get you to click on HTML link that is there, file that is there as part of what looks to be a voicemail notification for you. And then it takes you to a website that's specially crafted for you and your company. So you work at bigco.com and you click on that HTML and it'll take you to bigco.com. Well, at least that's what it looks like. But it distracts you now because it wants to give you this CAPTCHA as well. So this Google CAPTCHAs, these things, these little mini Turing tests. Click on all of the trees in the picture, sort of a thing, right? And you've got the 9 things with, or maybe it's some blurred or distorted text, and you have to type that in. And the whole idea behind that is normally to weed out these bots on e-commerce sites, online account sites. But what they're doing here is they're making sure that the email, the software that checks the emails to make sure they are legitimate, that is going out to the bigcofake.com website, they want to make sure that that email checker does not find out that it's not the real site that you wanted to go to. So the computer that's doing the checking will go to the site and it'll say, oh, there's a CAPTCHA on there. And then it'll stop because it can't solve the CAPTCHA. It needs you. It needs a human, right? So this is kind of cool here. Eric Cron, he's a security awareness advocate with KnowBe4. KnowBe4 is a company that does training for people, for employees here about some of these hacks and things that are going on. When faced with a login prompt that looks like a typical Office 365 login, the person is likely to feel comfortable entering their information without looking at the browser's URL bar to ensure they are at the real login site. This familiarity and the high odds that an intended victim regularly uses Office 365 for something in the workday makes this a great lure for attackers. This is from an article over on darkreading.com. This isn't a new technique, but let me tell you, it is a very successful one. They have seen a resurgence of this starting a couple of years ago, back in July 2020, and it is really targeting human nature. And of course, Microsoft 365 is quite the target. So I mentioned the $43 billion industry. I'm looking right now at a public service announcement from the FBI, and they are calling business email compromise the $43 billion scam. This is crazy. It's a sophisticated scam. It targets businesses and individuals who are performing legitimate transfer funds requests. It's carried out by people who are compromising legitimate businesses and individuals. Now, what they're trying to do with this business email compromise is get someone who has control of funds to do a transfer. What happens is they will do a little research on the business. They might go to the website and see on the website, oh, let me see here. Okay, the president's name is Craig Peterson. The CFO is Mary Jane. And the accounting department head is Manley. And so now they got that information. So they'll go online and they'll look at LinkedIn, find out who else is at the business. Maybe things have changed. Maybe try and find an email address by doing an open source search for the email address of people there at the business. You see where this is going here? Yeah, it gets pretty bad. So let's say they befriend the CEO on Facebook or on LinkedIn, but Facebook more likely. And now they can see on Facebook, or maybe they don't even have to because your Facebook profile and posts are not hidden from the public. So they just go there, oh, let me see. Okay, great. He's going to be out of town next week. And then what they'll do is they'll get into somebody's email account at the business. And once they're into somebody's email account, they can start looking through the emails and sending emails that look perfectly legitimate to other people within the organization. Now, I did a whole story on television about this one, a news program. And one of the people on staff, one of the talking heads, received an email like this, and it asked him to buy some gift cards. This is very, very common scam right now, the gift card scam. And they try and get you to go ahead and buy gift cards for other people in the office. They're going to have a little party, and we don't want anybody else to know about it. It's supposed to be a surprise. And I had some real fun with him. One of these days, I should probably share all of this in one of my newsletters. I think you guys would really appreciate it, enjoy it a little bit. But we really led them on. And sure enough, it was a total scam, and we kept playing with them, and it was something. Anyhow, that was one thing. This is another, because they will eventually get to the CFO, somebody who has the authority to transfer funds, and get them to transfer funds to them. And then they use mules to move the money around, these useful idiots who will sign up and it's kind of like the Nigerian scam. All I need is access to your bank account, and I'm going to wire in $10,000, and what I need you to do is transfer 8,000 of it over here to this PayPal account because my grandmother's dying and she needs the money. There's similar scams that are going after lonely people and getting them to send money because somebody needs an operation, etc. So in this case with the business email compromise and the $43 billion that have been stolen from businesses, they'll usually get to the CFO and send a story like, hey, we have this new vendor and we've had him for 3 months and we haven't been paying them, and we got to make sure we pay them, and we need to wire $43 million to this account. That actually happened, and they did wire the money. It happened to Barbara Corcoran, another person who is on Shark Tank. It happens to a lot of companies out there, and I've got a couple in the last month that we've worked with the FBI on. These companies hear me on the radio. They sent an email to me at craigpeterson.com, and they had their operating accounts emptied. The latest one is a lady, 77 years old, who had her retirement money stolen from her, over $70,000. This stuff's real, people. We've got to pay attention. We can't let this continue to happen. Make sure you sign up online, CraigPeterson.com, so that you can get my insider show notes and we can keep you ahead of the bad guys. When we come back, we're going to talk about this Roe overturn and what senators are asking the FTC. We've got some senators who are saying they were spurred on by the Roe overturn, and they're asking the FTC to probe Apple and Android and what's happening with tracking. Now, I have a suspicion that's not really right. We've got, of course, the recent overturn of Roe. You, of course, heard about that. It was pretty much impossible to miss if you pay any attention to the news. Well, we've got 3 Democrat U.S. senators and a Democrat U.S. representative that asked the Federal Trade Commission to, quote, investigate Apple and Google for engaging in unfair and deceptive practices by enabling the collection and sale of hundreds of millions of mobile phones users' data. The FTC should investigate Apple and Google's role in transforming online advertising into an intense system of surveillance that incentivizes and facilitates the unrestrained collection and constant sale of Americans' personal data. These companies have failed to inform consumers of the privacy and security dangers involved in using those products. It is beyond time to bring an end to the privacy harms forced on consumers by these companies. Now, I have been talking about this on the radio for 20 years because do you remember when Congress forced telephone manufacturers and cell phone companies to put GPS coordinates into the receivers, into the phones? Do you remember that? You could no longer use your analog phone. You had to use digital phones under federal law, right? It's just amazing. We can go into all of the reasons that they've given for that in the past. But anyhow, that's what they did. So immediately, decades ago now, many years ago, they started collecting data. Now, it's okay for the government to collect it, even though it's illegal for them to collect this data. So what's happening here? Why have the Democrats for so long, well, and frankly, a lot of Republicans, been big on collecting data on all of us? Now, I've got to say, when I've looked at the stats, the biggest purveyors of the surveillance society have been President Obama, followed by President Biden. Now, you could argue that President Bush was one too, because of course they passed an act that allowed for all kinds of changes in surveillance. So, okay, so we'll put him in there too. So we got a Republican in there. But Obama put that program that President Bush had put in place on steroids. And then President Biden did the same thing. President Trump tried to cut it back because he was a victim of some of the surveillance that they were doing. So what's going on here? Well, these Democrat senators are saying, we don't want people who are trying to get abortions to be tracked. Okay, I can see that. I can also see that I don't want to be tracked, and you don't want to be tracked. And it's one thing to have an advertiser know a little bit about us. You know, hey, we just visited the Ford dealer and the Chevy dealer and the Honda dealer, so maybe he's looking for a car. Let's try and advertise a car, right? So Honda and Chevy and Ford all start putting ads up for you. Okay, so that's one thing. If I'm interested in buying a truck, okay, great. Show me ads on a truck. But we've seen already misuses of this data over the years. One of the earliest ones I talked about here on the radio was this guy who went to an emergency room and all of a sudden started seeing ads for what you might call ambulance chasing lawyers. saying, have you been injured? Right? You've seen those types of ads before. But once he was in the emergency room and he was geolocated in the emergency room, they started selling advertising to lawyers. I'm not real fond of that one either. But I think there's an ulterior motive here behind what these Democrats are saying. If you have seen the movie 2,000 Mules, you understand what I'm talking about here. What ended up happening here is they looked at trillions of data points. You see, they went out and bought databases of smartphone data where these smartphones were located. And then they started doing some serious analysis on it. And they were able to say, okay, this smartphone went to 10 different drop boxes for the election, for ballots. And in between each visit to the drop box, they went to a left-wing organization where they did something. Right? So they go to a drop box, drop off ballots, and they're on video doing this, dropping off ballots. And then they go to a left-wing organization, and then they go drop off more ballots at a different drop box. And then they go back again. And then it's on video. And some of these people are taking pictures of them, stuffing the ballots into the box, supposedly so they can get paid. So now there are some criminal investigations that have been started. I don't know how far they've gotten yet, over some of this information that was gathered and that was documented in the film by Dinesh D'Souza called 2,000 Mules. If you haven't seen it, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you need to see it. Absolutely need to see it. And whether you believe or not, when President Biden said that we have the best, election stealing organization that's ever been made, I can't remember his exact words right now. He was serious about it, right? So now all of a sudden, the Democrats are concerned that people who visit abortion clinics might be tracked, because they could be, right? You could buy data geotagged with an abortion clinic's location, GPS coordinates. You absolutely could do that. But that's been true for a long time. Why now? Well, maybe because of Roe v. Wade. But of course, it wasn't just that one decision that was overturned. But I look at some of this and really, really do wonder, because it really looks like some number of people were caught illegally stuffing ballot boxes. So it's fascinating to me that all of a sudden now out they come with this. Now, Apple has stopped enabling the tracker identifiers by default. If you have an Apple smartphone, it is much more private than the Android phones are, by far, right? Google makes its money by selling your information. That's how they make most of their money. Apple makes its money by selling you services and selling you hardware. So that should tell you something right there. And the fact that Senator Elizabeth Warren is one of the ones who is proposing this legislation makes you think even more about this. Now, Google, this is an article from Ars Technica, apparently responded to this whole concept in an article that Ars was writing, saying that it's had all kinds of efforts to block apps that violate Google Play policies and the bans it's imposed on companies that apparently sold user data. And they say Google never sells user data, and the Play at Google strictly prohibits the sale of user data by developers, and goes into the advertising ID. So it's fascinating to me that all of a sudden now the Democrats are interested in stopping the data collection. It really is. I don't like it. As I said, I've talked about this for more than 20 years now on the radio. I think it's a real problem, this data collection, because also the federal government, even though it's illegal for them to collect information on American citizens. They do it every day. And some of the largest, like the immigration people, Homeland Security, are the biggest collector. They have more information about you than anyone else, even if you're here legally, you were born in the United States, etc., because they are buying all of this information from what are called data brokers. So yeah, they say, yeah, we're not collecting it. We're forbidden by law to collect it, which is absolutely true. But what they are doing is buying it from private businesses. So I think we've got to completely reconsider how this all works. Apple has been working on it. You can go into your Apple phone and make a change to your identifier if you want to, which makes it harder to track. Apple also, and Google has this as, I believe, as an option, but Apple also will give you a different MAC address every time you're connecting to Wi-Fi networks so that you can't be tracked that way. Because just if you connect to the network at Target, the Wi-Fi at Target, for instance, they will know when you return because your phone has the same MAC address that's used for the Wi-Fi. So they know it's you. They know where you go in the store. They know what you're looking at in the store in some cases, depending on how the tracking works. So it's fascinating to me. This is a real privacy issue that could easily turn into something much worse because this data, the same data that's available to marketers, is available to government, is also available to bad guys. And you talk about the ability to potentially frame someone, and it just gets extremely, extremely scary, right? Now, last month, more than 40 members of Congress called on Google to stop collecting and retaining customer location data that prosecutors could use to identify women who obtain abortions. Again, tied into this abortion anytime, any day. And as the governor of Virginia said, even after the baby is born and delivered, you should be able to abort it. So wherever you fall on that spectrum, obviously the Democrats in the U.S. want abortions far more than the Europeans. That every European country I can think of has much tougher restrictions on abortion than we have here. But this privacy is not an abortion issue. Hey, join me online, craigpeterson.com. Make sure you are on my email list, and you can ask any question you want. Just email me, me@craigpeterson.com. I really appreciate all the emails I get from you guys, and it is driving me to do something I've never done before. Now, I've always provided all kinds of free information if you're on my email list. Great stuff. But now we're talking about cyber punch lists, so they know what's hot. Because who really tracks technology? Not too many people. And I get, a little off-put by some of these other radio hosts that call themselves tech people, and they're actually marketing people. But, that's me, right? And that's why, if you are on my list, you've probably noticed I'm not hammering you, trying to sell you stuff all of the time. It's good, valuable content. And I'm starting something brand new. Never done this before, but this is for you guys, okay? You know that I do cybersecurity as a business, and I've been doing it now for more than 3 decades. I don't know if I should admit that, right? They say never say more than 17 years. Okay, so I've been doing it for more than 17 years, and I've been on the internet now for 40 years now, okay? Back before it was even called the internet. I helped to develop the silly thing. So over the years, we've come up with a number of different strategies. We have these things that are called plan of action and milestones, and we have all kinds of other lists of things that we do and that need to be done. So what we're doing right now is we're setting it up so that you can just email me, me@craigpeterson.com, and I will go ahead and send you one of these punch lists. Now, the punch lists are around one specific topic. We got these massive punch lists with hundreds and hundreds of things on them. And those are what we use when we go in to help clean up the cybersecurity in a company. So we'll go in, we'll do scans, we will do red team, blue team where we're attacking. We do all kinds of different types of scans using different software, trying to break in. We use the same tools that the hackers use in order to see if we can get into your systems and if the systems are properly secured. So we do all of this stuff. And then it goes into all of the paperwork that needs to be done to comply with whatever it might be, right? It might be they accept payment cards. It might be that they have HIPAA information, which is healthcare information. And it might be also that they're a government contractor. So there are hundreds and hundreds of things that they have to comply with. Most of them are procedural. So we have all of this stuff. We do all of this stuff. And I was talking with my wife here this last week about it and said, so much of this could be used by small companies that can't afford to hire my team to come in and clean things up, right? And I don't want them to suffer. So here's what we're doing. We're starting this next week. We have a punch list for you on email. So what are the things you can do, should do for email? Just very, very narrow on email so that you can recognize a phishing email, what you might want to do to lock down your Outlook if you're on Windows or your Mac mail. So we're taking these massive spreadsheets that we have and we're breaking them up. So the first one that's available to you guys, absolutely 100% free, is the one on email. So just send me an email, me at craigpeterson.com. Now remember, my business is a business-to-business business, right? But almost everything in these various punch lists applies to individuals as well. So I got an email this last week from a guy saying, hey, I'm 80 years old and retired and I don't know much about computers. And that's kind of what got us thinking about this. We need to be able to help him. We need to be able to help you out, okay? And if you're a small business, and we've dealt with a lot of them over the years, and as a small business, you just don't have the funds to bring in an expert, whether it's me or somebody else, although, you want the best. But anyways, it is going to allow you to do it yourself, okay? So absolutely free, all of these punch lists on all of these topics. We're probably going to end up with more than 100 of these punch lists. And all you do is email me, at craigpeterson.com. Just let me know in there what you're interested in. So even if we haven't got that punch list broken down for you yet, we will go ahead and put that on the list to do, right? We need the priorities. What kind of a priority should we have as we're putting these things together for free for people, right? And the only way we know is if you ask. So the first one's on email. You can certainly ask for email. We've got, as I said, more than 100 others that we think we're going to be able to pull out of the exact plan of action worksheets that we use so that you can go through this yourself, whether you're a home user or you are a small business or even a big business, right? We're talking with a gentleman who's probably listening right now who has a business. They have 3 offices. They have some requirement because of the military contracts for high-level cybersecurity, and it would work for him too, all right? So this is all of the punch list stuff. You probably know what a punch list is, right? It's used in the construction industry a lot. But in our case, it's you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, okay? So that's what that's all about. So enough rambling on that. It's going to take us some time to get them all together. I'm also We're going to do more video stuff. Again, training. So just like on the radio show where we're talking about what's in the news, we're going to talk about what's in the news when it comes to small businesses, what you should be paying attention to, with, of course, an emphasis on cybersecurity. And we're putting those up on my website at craigpeterson.com. In fact, we've already got some up there already. And then we are going to also be putting them on YouTube and Rumble. So if you don't like YouTube and Google, then you can certainly go to Rumble. You'll see them there. But if you're on the email list, I'm starting to put links in the bottom of the emails so you can go and watch those videos if you're a video type person, more visual. So it's, I think, all good, and it's good news for everybody. And this is what happens, I think, as you get more mature in the business, right? As I said, I've been on the internet for more than 40 years, helped develop some of that software that some of it's still in use today. And now it's time to do more give back, and I really am trying to give back. Okay, this isn't a joke. So no joke, right? So go ahead, email me at Craig Peterson. Tell me which punch list that you would like. And I can also put you on my email list so that you get my insider show notes. And you can just do that yourself by going to craigpeterson.com. You'll see right up at the top of the page. If you scroll down a little bit, it'll kind of pop up. It's a big red bar that goes across the top. I try not to be too intrusive. And you can sign up there for the newsletter. So you'll get some of these trainings automatically. You'll get my insider show notes, all of this stuff. It's absolutely free, okay? This is my give back to help you out. It really is, okay? As I mentioned at the very beginning, I get peeved by some of these people that represent themselves as tech experts, and in fact, all they are marketers. We've got a client that decided that I was too expensive, my team. So they went out and shopped around, tried to find the cheapest company they could. And so now the company that they're bringing in is saying, hey, so how does this work? How do you do zero trust? Why do you have a firewall here? Why do you bother to have a direct fiber link between the offices? All this stuff. Well, because they need it, okay? I get it. You use Barracuda spam firewalls and Barracuda firewalls. Yeah. This is a different league, okay? So you're going to be getting these punch lists from me that are really going to help you understand and secure your systems, right? This isn't your average run-of-the-mill so-called managed security services provider or managed services or break-fix shop. You're getting it from the guy that the FBI InfraGard program went to do their trainings. That was me. Okay, so for 2 years, I set up the program, I ran it, and if we ever sitting down having a coffee or a beer sometimes, I'll tell you why I left, okay? But think about FBI, and I think you might have a clue as to why I decided not to do that anymore. But I trained thousands of businesses, government agencies, state, local, federal, you name it. So you're getting what you really need, which is another problem I keep hearing from people. You do a search for something on YouTube or Google, and you get, 1 million, 5 million pages, right, as supposedly that it says are available, and they give you, okay, here's the top one. But what you need is an integrated, single way to do things where everything works together. And that's what I'm trying to do for you guys, because there's so many little products, different products that just don't work so well together. So we'll be covering that as well in these, but you gotta be on that email list. CraigPeterson.com, CraigPeterson.com/subscribe. Will take you right to the subscription page, and I'll keep you up to date. This is not my paid newsletter, all right? Stick around. We'll be right back, and I promise I'll get to Russia. Some of the high-tech companies and others pulled out of Russia after the Ukraine invasion, but one stayed, Google. What is going on with Google? And now they're in big trouble with the Russian government. Wow. Here's a list of companies, according to CNET, that have pulled out of Russia. Because remember, Russia invaded Ukraine February 24. We had Adobe. These are the guys that make Photoshop, Adobe Reader, Airbnb. Airbnb has kind of an interesting story, too, in Ukraine, because quite a number of Airbnb customers went ahead and rented rooms and homes from Ukrainians, even though they had no intention of going. And they told the Ukrainians, hey, I'm not going to show up. Just take this money. I'm sure you need it. Can you imagine that? That's fantastic. Good for them. Amazon, they suspended shipments of all retail products to customers in Russia and Belarus, and also suspended Prime Video for users in Russia. Apple stopped selling its product in Russia. It's halting online transactions, including limiting Apple Pay. It's also disabled some Apple Map features in Ukraine in order to protect civilians. Amazon Web Services, they don't have data centers or offices in Russia, but it stopped allowing new signups for the service in Russia. BMW, Ford, GM, Honda have all scaled back their operations or stopped them. Ford suspended its operations in Russia effective immediately until further notice. GM is suspending business in Russia. Honda has suspended exports to Russia. Disney halted all theatrical releases in Russia, including the new Pixar film Turning Red. Also paused content. DJI, the drone company that's gotten in trouble here in the U.S. for some of its practices of sending GPS information to China. Well, they're not doing it over there. Electronic Arts, they make a bunch of very popular games. Epic Games, another one. Ericsson. FIFA body banned Russia from this year's World Cup. Formula One canceled its planned Russian Grand Prix. Fujitsu, Goldman Sachs. Now, Google, that's where I want to go. We'll stop at Google here for a minute. Google suspended their ad network in Russia. And the idea was, okay, we're not sure how payments are going to work because Russia, of course, has had this lockdown by foreign countries on their banking system. We're not sure we can get the money out, right? That's what they're apparently doing. Now, they're still there. Google's YouTube, its search engine, on and on, still running in Russia. Now, that is really disturbing, if you ask me. Why did they not pull out? It doesn't make sense. So Google did stop accepting new customers for Google Cloud in March. YouTube said it's removing videos that deny or trivialize the Russian invasion. But what finally got Google out of Russia? Russia seized their bank accounts. They froze them. They transferred their money out of the main bank account in Russia. We're talking about a $2 billion per year business, Google Russia. That really upsets me. So I did a little more research online about all of this, and I was really surprised to see that Ukraine now has given the Ukraine Peace Prize to Google. And it says, quote, on the behalf of the Ukrainian people, with gratitude for the support during this pivotal moment in our nation's history. So what is it? I'm not sure, right? So one of their foreign ministers, I guess, and Karan Bahatia, I think, said, thank you. From the beginning of the war, Google has sought to help however we can through humanitarian support of our tools. We'll continue to do as long as needed. So I dug in a little more and tried to figure out what's up. Well, Google left its Russian search engine online and YouTube online and was using it in Russia in order to control the narrative in Russia. Now, unlike what they've done here in the U.S., where Google has been caught many times controlling the narrative in various elections and taking certain ads and not taking others, and taking certain business and not taking others, apparently in Russia, it has been blocking a lot of the stuff that Russia itself has been putting out. So the federal government there in Russia. Interesting, hey? So they also have helped Ukraine out by providing them with mapping, GPS, and rumor has it, satellite services. Yeah, interesting, eh? To track Russian troop movements. Also, Ukraine saying the Google News component has also been tremendously valuable. Google's also helping to raise money for the cause of Ukraine, like many companies are doing right now, to help people displaced due to the war. And Poland, wow, they've been doing yeoman's work and bringing people in by the millions into Poland from Ukraine. It reminds me when I lived in Calgary, Alberta. One of the Cub masters, Cub troop leaders, was a woman who came from Poland many years ago. This was back during Soviet occupation of Poland. And I remember talking to her about what was happening over there. Why did she leave? And it's just so impressive. The Poles have done so much impressive stuff over the years. So they're also saying that Google's done a lot of other things in order to help protect Ukraine, including Google's blocked domains. They've prevented phishing attacks against Ukraine. They warned targeted individuals that they are being targeted. It's really something what they've done. So my first knee-jerk was, why is Google still doing business in Russia? Well, now it's become clear because they have a special page for Russians that gives correct information. At least, Google's claiming it's correct. I don't know which fact checkers they're using, but that gives Russians real information about the war, what's going on in Ukraine, what's happening with the Russian soldiers. Did you see this just this last week? Apparently, Russia removed the age limit for volunteers for the military. It used to be, I think it was 40 years old if you were a Russian citizen and 30 years old if you were a foreign national. Now, the Russian military will take anybody, any age from anywhere. In other words, Russia is really getting kind of hard up if they want people like me, right, to fight their wars. I'm sure they don't really. Well, I don't know. Maybe they do want me, right? Every war needs cannon fodder. So it is fascinating to see. Good job, Google. I am quite impressed. I did not expect them to be doing that. They've also provided over $45 million in donations and grants to various groups. They've done pro bono work for various organizations over there. So this is really, really cool. So that's it. That's what's happening over there in Ukraine and Google. You can, of course, find out a lot more. Get my insider show notes. So you had all of this on Tuesday morning. You could have digested it all and be ahead of everybody else out there. And then also, don't forget about my new offer here, free, absolutely free for anyone that asks by emailing me at craigpeterson.com. I'll go ahead and send them to you, which is, I think, a pretty cool thing. Now, what am I going to send you? Well, you got to ask first, right? You got to ask. And what we're going to be doing is taking what I have been using for years to help secure my customers, and we're making available for free my cyber punch lists. craigpeterson.com/subscribe. Bit of a hubbub here about Biden's infrastructure bill, $1.2 trillion. And it's in there is this thing that Bob Barr is calling an automobile kill switch. Well, I did some more research and we'll tell you the facts right now. What are you supposed to do? If you are trying to pass a bill to stop drunk driving deaths, and you've got all of the money in the world, well, I guess 1.2 trillion isn't all of the money in the world. What are you going to put in there? Well, I did a search on this, and I'm chuckling because this is craziness. This is the AP, Associated Press, and they've got this article, claim President Joe Biden signed a bill that will give law enforcement access to a kill switch that will be attached to all new cars in 2026. AP's assessment, false. Okay, so we've got fact checkers here. Well, the bipartisan infrastructure bill Biden signed last year requires advanced drunk and impaired driving technology to become standard equipment in cars. Experts say that technology doesn't amount to a kill switch. Let me see. So I can't start the car if the car's computer thinks I might be drunk or impaired in some other way. But that's not a kill switch? What is that then? If I can't start the car because I have a disagreement with the computer? How about these people that, I don't know, maybe their eyes can't open all of the way. Maybe they have problems with eyes, nystagmus, the eyes kind of jittering back and forth, right? And now what are they going to do? Argue with the computer? That's a kill switch. I can't believe these crazy people that are like AP here coming up with fact checking on things. So, yeah, I'm sure there's some distortions in some articles out there, but they contradicted themselves in 2 paragraphs. I guess they figure people are just going to see false. Okay, I'm done. They're not going to bother reading the rest of the article. Yeah, kind of crazy, isn't it? So, according to an article written by, remember, former U.S. Representative Bob Barr, in the infrastructure bill is this kill switch. Now, the big question is, what is the kill switch? How far does it go? So I decided, well, let's look up something I remember from years ago, and that is GM. GM has the OnStar system. It's yet another reason I won't buy GM. There are a number of reasons, but this is another one. OnStar system, they've got an advisor. Isn't that great? And if your car is in a car accident, a crash, that advisor can hop on and ask if you're okay. And if you want emergency services coming, they'll come. OnStar will call them for you. And if you are just fine, they won't bother calling. I mean, if there's no answer at all, they'll call emergency services and let them know where the vehicle is, because the vehicle has, with OnStar, built in GPS. Well, one of the features of OnStar is that it can send a signal to disable cars' engines and gradually slow the vehicle to an idle speed to assist police in recovering the vehicle. Now, they will only do that, at least right now, for vehicles that have been reported stolen and have been confirmed by the police. So in reality, that's kind of cool, right? It slows down, hopefully, the bad guy, if he's on the highway, makes it over to the side of the road while the car slows down and eventually stops. So all of this stuff sounds good. This kill switch sounds good, doesn't it? Because, we're going to keep drunk drivers off the road. Now, in reality, of course, they're not going to be able to keep drunk drivers or other impaired drivers off the road. I really don't care what kind of technology they put in. And they're not talking about putting in one of these blow-in-the-tube things that checks your blood alcohol level. They're talking about having a camera facing you as the driver and probably other occupants of the vehicles. And that internally facing camera is going to evaluate you. It's going to look at you. It's going to look at your face. Is something droopy? Are you kind of slow to respond? It might have a little test that it has you take, right? The law is very loosey-goosey on any details. There really aren't any. So it's going to be up to the manufacturer. So they put this in the car. Step 1. Just like OnStar. Step 1. Put it in the car and they'll tell you when to turn. Remember how cool that was, the GPS with OnStar? And you'd say, I want to go to this address. And then the assistant goes ahead and sends programming to your car. And now you can go. And if you lock your keys in the car, they can unlock the car for you. All kinds of cool stuff. And then next up, what happens? Well, they can stop the vehicle. So there's another technology story related to OnStar, and this is from 2009 from Kelley Blue Book. OnStar stolen vehicle slowdown thwarts its first carjacking. So again, doesn't that sound fantastic? This was a Tahoe OnStar equipped, and the driver and his passenger forced out of the vehicle, robbed by a shotgun wielding perp, who then drove off in the SUV. And the OnStar dispatcher was able to locate the vehicle using GPS, advise police of exact location. And as soon as the police established visual contact, the stolen vehicle slowdown system was activated. Available on a number of GM cars and trucks, right? So this was over a decade ago that this happened. But the technology's evolved, hasn't it? So we initially have all of these car companies trying to decide, okay, so we've got this kill switch law, which AP says is not a kill switch law, because they talk to experts, just like the, 52 people, heads of intelligence committees and agencies said that this wasn't a collusion hoax, right? So they talked to experts who said, no, this isn't a kill switch. But that's today. You can argue it's not a kill switch. I would completely disagree with you. Day one, it's a kill switch because you can't start your car, right? It's a kill switch. A kill switch is often something you hide somewhere on the car so you can kill the engine so it can't be stolen, right? It's a kill switch. Come on, people. Fact checkers aside, but this could potentially allow law enforcement again to shut down your car remotely, track the car's metrics, location, maybe the passenger load. Because remember now, cars are tracking all of this. There have already been tickets issued by police that did not see anyone speeding. The car was not caught on a traffic camera, but they hook up a device to your car's port that talks to its computer, and the computer says, yeah, he was doing 80 miles an hour 5 minutes ago. And all of a sudden you got a ticket, right? Massachusetts wants to go ahead now and say, let's charge by the mile that you drive in Mass, because of course they're not getting enough revenue from gasoline because of the electric cars, right? Electric cars are not paying their fair share when it comes to road taxes. So let's do it that way. So how are they going to collect the information? Well, they're going to hook up to your car's computer. The next thing coming down the road, and it's already in most cars, is wireless data connectivity. You might have found already, if you have a Nissan, a Honda, many other cars, that you have to get a major upgrade. It varies $600 up to a few grand for an expensive car. But the 2G data network, we talked about this on the show already, is being completely shut down by the end of the year. So they've got to replace it and switch you over to the LTE data network, which of course eventually will go away as well, or at least 3G. What happens once it's all hooked up? Well, the next easy step is just feed all of that information straight to the government. CraigPeterson.com. If you've been afraid of ransomware before, I've got a good example for you where a whole country now has been ransomed. Absolutely crazy. So we'll talk about that. What is the state of ransomware? And the NSA is asking us to trust them again. Of course, staying up to date means that you get my insider newsletter pretty much every Tuesday morning. and the only way to get that is to go to CraigPeterson.com/subscribe, and I will keep you up to date. You'll get even more inside information. The Costa Rican government has declared a state of national emergency. And to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time a government has done this, because agencies of the Costa Rican government have been hit so badly by the Conti ransomware that the new incoming president immediately declared a state of emergency. So now the country has expanded law enforcement powers, and they are trying to go after the Conti ransomware group. Now, between you and me, good luck on that one. They are based in Russia. There's a number of different articles out this week. This one from ADV Intel at Tech Target. But according to their research, the Conti ransomware group's attack on Costa Rican government was part of a rebranding effort. So this ransomware gang has seen a lot of their payments just dry up because it's harder to get the money in, right? And what are you going to do with cryptocurrency if you're the Conti group? Can you turn it into anything useful? Well, it kind of depends on the country you're in, but for most people, no. Okay, absolutely no. So we were able to knock the Conti ransomware group's website offline. And we talked about that before here. The U.S. government did that. But now this is marking a new chapter for the cybercrime landscape. Interesting, isn't it? So there are some investigations that have been going on. They've been trying to figure out what happened, what was the cause of the downfall of the Conti ransomware group. Are they really gone? Why did they pull their website offline? And also, they declared publicly support for Russia in its invasion of Ukraine. And so now the Conti ransomware group got hacked and held ransom. They suffered major leaks as a consequence. So other hackers went after Conti, which is a hacking group, and they showed here from internal documents that were stolen that the Conti ransomware gang's primary Bitcoin address, which was found in the leak, showed that they had taken in over $2 billion in cryptocurrency over the last 5 years. Isn't that just amazing? And anonymous leaker has published more of the gang's communications, but, that can't help them, that's for sure. But you think with that much money, they'd be able to protect themselves, right? Now, on top of it, because of the hack of Costa Rica and the major damage it's caused, the U.S. government has offered a couple of bounties here against the Conti ransomware group. So there's $10 million available if you can provide the feds with information about the leaders of the Conti ransomware group, and $5 million that you can get leading to the arrest of anyone involved with a Conti ransomware attack. Isn't that something? So ransomware has been really out of control for years. There's no signs that things are actually slowing down. Definitely been enhanced law enforcement efforts to track them down. But ultimately here, the core members of these groups have been escaping these law enforcement activities. They've been using mules, kind of like 2,000 Mules, if you've seen that movie. But the idea is they get people, primarily in the U.S., because that's where most of the money comes from. They do ransom of people and businesses' information here. In fact, last year, it's estimated that 60% of small businesses were hacked, which is just crazy, right? Well, no wonder it's got $2 billion. But what are we supposed to do? What are they doing to really come after us? Well, they're doing many of the same things. These mules will be hired saying, hey, I just need to use your PayPal account, and all you have to do is transfer some money. You can keep 5%, 10% of the money I put in there. And they've always got these excuses. Think the Nigerian email scams from years past, and they, frankly, still kind of go around a little bit here. But large bounties are really becoming a part of the toolbox that law enforcement's been using in the U.S. and abroad to try and track them down. And that's really what they're hoping for down in Costa Rica. Because what are they going to do? Frankly, really, what are they going to do? Well, I don't know. And they obviously are relying on the United States to help them out with this. The internal structure of the Conti group has been highly organized. They've got the same type of structure of a legitimate corporation would have. It takes its work that needs to be done. They hire contractors that may not even know who they're actually working for to write small pieces of code here that gets tied in. So it's not too surprising that a Conti affiliate is going to go far enough to cause a national emergency to be declared. One of the things that Conti has done and some of these other ransomware companies have done, companies, gangs, is they have ransomware as a service. So there's all of these people that are affiliated with Conti, and all you have to do is get the Conti ransomware onto someone's computer, and ta-da, they will pay you. It's really that simple. They've got tech support for the people that are that got ransomed to help them supposedly pay, right? How do I buy Bitcoin? And they'll walk you through that. And then they will help you with restoring your files. Hopefully they can be restored. They can't always be restored. I think right now, the latest number I saw is about 60% of people who have their data encrypted and ransomed are, in fact, able to get that data, 60% of the data back. So that's not too big a deal. But Conti operates on an affiliate model. And this affiliate that went ahead and ransomed our friends in Costa Rica is called UNC 1756, Uncle 756. They're also suspected in other attacks on government servers, including the theft of intelligence materials from Peru. And this attacker has already leaked information stolen from Costa Rica, and it's on the Conti ransomware dark web portal, which is online. And after the former president of the country refused to pay a $10 million ransom demand, they started leaking the data. So in this case, focus has been on the national government agencies. They are potentially looking at what you might call espionage. But these Conti ransomware affiliates have become famous for really quickly exploiting new vulnerabilities as they're published and being indiscriminate in who they attack because $2 billion, right? And then the other part that I think is really kind of interesting here is we're talking about money. We're talking about real money. Obviously, Conti deals almost exclusively in Bitcoin, which can be hard to turn into hard currencies, but that our friends in Costa Rica have said, no, we're not going to pay, knowing what has been stolen and what they no longer have access to. In fact, the president said that the country, Costa Rica, is effectively at war. Now, they got a foothold, Conti did, in 27 agencies at different levels of the government. And so Conti is saying, I'm looking at an article in the Register here. Conti apparently has made more than 150 million from 1,000 plus victims. Well, we know it's actually 2 billion, but it depends on the time frame that they're talking about. And Conti says that they are determined to overthrow the government by means of a cyber attack. We have already shown you all the strength and power. You have introduced an emergency. It's really quite something. Now, I mentioned earlier today that I am now taking all of the cybersecurity stuff that we have been using here over the years, things like our plan of action and milestones documents and all of the stuff we use to run our projects for our customers. It's the real stuff, people. And remember, I've been doing the cybersecurity stuff since the early 90s. So we know what we're doing. I know what I'm doing, and I'm making it available for free. Okay, guys, you just have to send me an email, me@craigpeterson.com. So the first cyber punch list that we have that available, and all you have to do is ask for it. Again, me@craigpeterson.com is the email punch list. So with this punch list, I go through the things that you need to do in order to secure your email and be more or less secure in your email. Now, I don't know about you. I do not like these long diatribes. I have a book behind me that is hardening Windows 10. And it is in a 4-inch binder, double-sided. There are thousands of recommendations in there from Microsoft. There's a lot that needs to be done. So what I've done is boiled it down to the most important things. And as I said, it's available for absolutely free for you. It really is. If you're a listener, just email me, me@craigpeterson.com. You can ask me to add you to my insider show notes and my little 3-minute trainings that we do every week. You can also ask for a cyber punch list that you might need. So it's just, okay, need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. So it makes it very straightforward. I'm trying not to be obtuse about any of this, but we have had amazing feedback on this from companies over the years, and now it's available to you for $0, okay? So make sure you check it out, craigpeterson.com, and you can always email me, me@craigpeterson.com as well. Thanks for taking a little time with me today, and look for me online, look for my emails, and if you would, please give me a thumbs up on your favorite podcasting platform, YouTube or Rumble, or subscribe. Thanks.